It actually dates back to the middle 80s, and I still am, but I was a journalist then focused on the consumer for major metropolitan newspapers like the San Francisco Examiner, San Diego Union-Tribune here in San Diego, and LA Times, covering real estate. And I found all these agents that were, it was interesting. It was buyer's agents and ReMax agents. They tended to be, at the time, the most sophisticated with technology because you had to be on the internet. In fact, I just bought a home in San Francisco to be at the center of AI development. The industry was afraid of technology, and I love technology because I think it represents hope and possibilities and opportunity.
This is Brad Inman, and what you're about to hear will change how you think about success forever.
What have you seen change in leadership over the decades?
I think the most important one is I think we need to accept Gen X is in charge, and definitely of the real estate industry, and that is a really wonderful change. And part of it was my own DNA. I'm an entrepreneur, and I found realtors and startups exactly the same. You know, to be in all the time and try not to give up, as hard as it may be. But you also reach a point when something isn't working, and if you get overly passionate in your own product and believe too much in it, as we always said, you know, certain products are like grandma, you got to throw her off the boat.
Brad, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, it's great to be here, Wendy. I'm such a fan of yours, and I was humbled and flattered that you invited me.
Oh, well, thank you so much. We go way back.
Yes.
In fact, I remember coming to Inman Connects back when I still worked at Royal LePage in Canada, and was like a young kid coming to San Francisco to my first Inman Connect back in the 90s.
Is that the last century or this century?
It was a while ago. But, you know, I want to sort of start off, I guess, with a little bit of that history for those of you that, for those listening that may not know the history.
Yeah.
When did Inman News start, and what led you to sort of the path of Inman as, you know, many in the industry would know it today?
Yeah. Well, it actually dates back to the middle 80s. I was and I still am, but I was a journalist then focused on the consumer for major metropolitan newspapers like the San Francisco Examiner, San Diego Union-Tribune here in San Diego, and LA Times. And I covered a lot of issues, but I was drawn to real estate right away and began covering real estate. And then I was lucky to be in San Francisco in the early 90s when the internet hit, and got into the whole print to digital movement and started a lot of digital media companies. But it was right about that time when the internet started that probably on the first blogs, I started putting some things up on the internet. And I found all these agents that it was interesting. It was buyer's agents and ReMax agents. They tended to be, at the time, the most sophisticated and with technology, because you had to be on the internet to even. And they started following what I was writing, and I had always had a consumer audience. And it happened the first story I wrote about a scandal at NAR, and the agents felt like I was on their side, someone talking about their trade route honestly and openly. So it started with a handful of readers, and then within a year we had a conference, and it kind of evolved from there. So at the heart and soul of Inman has always been attempt to, do credible journalism, tell the truth as best we can, hear all sides, and we stuck with that. That's, that integrity is really important to us, and probably could have made a lot more money selling out the stage or selling, articles to people, but we didn't do that. We just stuck to our knitting. To this day, we hire real journalists that cover the beat, and then we have conferences. Mm-hmm. And I think everything about Inman is pretty upbeat. People leave our conferences feeling really good. So we also feel strongly about it should be not like a coach's conference, but giving people the latest, greatest of what's happening and how promising the future is with all this change. In fact, I just bought a home in San Francisco to be at the center of AI development, which is happening up north.
Yes.
And it reminds me of that period. It's a very, very exciting time to be alive, I think.
It is for so many reasons. So we're going to come back to that for sure.
Yeah.
So that was sort of the origins of Inman, Inman News, Inman Connect, and sort of that evolution. And through then, you've become known as sort of the storyteller of the real estate industry, sort of through those like journalistic roots.
Yep.
And major things have kind of happened,
Yep.
Through that sort of storytelling. So tell us about some of the sort of highlights of, let's say, sort of like company launches
Yep.
that have happened. Because I think a lot of people don't realize maybe some of the names today that we know in the industry that sort of started and became known through the origins of Inman.
Well, now the industry as a whole is embracing technology at different speeds and different levels.
Yep.
But back then, the industry was afraid of technology. And I love technology because I think it represents hope and possibilities and opportunity. And so we embraced all of the startups. And we made room on our stages. We celebrated them in our opening. We thanked them for coming. And part of it was my own DNA. I'm an entrepreneur, and I found realtors and startups exactly the same. As I often say from the stage, who paid with their own personal credit cards? It's entrepreneurs and it's realtors. And an entrepreneur doesn't really know when his or her next paycheck is coming from, and neither does a realtor. So we need to connect about connecting those two worlds. But while the average realtor came to our conference and were excited because they were heat-seeking missiles for opportunity, the leadership of the industry, the establishment, shunned us in a really serious way, to the point of I could tell you crazy stories. So we were the place that housed these startups and gave them a national platform, gave them the recognition, wrote about them, put them on stage. And sure enough, there'll be a bunch of companies here that they're gonna be mainstream in a couple years. You don't know necessarily who they are yet. But launching at Inman, Zillow, Trillia, I just go through the list,
Yeah.
And I have so many, what is the lending platform? I'm spacing on it. Anyway, he gave a speech, and some old pokey real estate broker stood up and said, "How many transactions have you done?" And I think he said, Doug Lebda. Lending Tree was the entrepreneur, and he said 4, and they made fun of him. And he went on and sold his company for $800 million to Barry Diller. He rebought the company, went public. It's got a multi-billion-dollar valuation. He probably does, 2 million transactions a day, at least through eyeballs and lead referral. So, and Zillow launched at Inman, and all these companies, and they were trash and were made fun of, and people tried to put obstacles in front of them. So that was one of our storylines, and they came after us too, because they didn't like what we said. But now people have embraced technology, so that we climbed that hill and won that battle.
Yeah. I think you've always had an affection, in a way, for the underdog.
Totally.
And that entrepreneur, especially those tech startups. And you've given them a space and given them
we really believe
a
in
stage.
That. Yeah.
You do. So
it's like our speakers on stage. I would say, you're the big shots that get paid a lot of money, often not the entrepreneurs. We're there for the person who flew all the way from Omaha and spent all that money and time to come to our conference, and that's who I'm grateful for.
Yes, and you've done that. I remember for me, you always search for new faces, and usually sort of young, people, and give them an opportunity to speak on stage. So thank you for doing that, because I was one of those people.
Speaking of story, a storyline of this, in about 15 years ago, I met a woman named Yaz, and I married Yaz, and she's been my
I remember.
She's behind the scenes partner. And she came to one of the conferences. She was very worried I was one of these coach guys, rah, 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 Tony Robbins. But she came and said, wow, you have a great following, a great audience, but you need to take the people in the audience and put them on the stage. She said, you have more women than men. You have a lot of gays. You have young people, and you need to transform the company from its everything to that audience. And it was one of those mini changes that we made and we always had diversity more than the rest of the industry, but not nearly enough. And that was transformative. So this quiet narrative that no one knows about is this incredible connection I have to my wife Yaz, and how she's influenced me personally in profound ways, but also the Inman, because every company goes through chapters,
Yes. Yeah. As we do, as people, as leaders.
Yep.
What have you seen change in leadership over the decades as you've observed not only the sort of young tech startups, but the industry and the establishment of the industry. Like, you've had a vantage point of these various chapters. What observations?
Well, I think the most important one is what you just said, Young, is the next generation. It looks to me like if you look around now at the leadership, it's still not diverse enough, men and women, but it's Gen X now is running a real estate industry. And, they are, as a generation, know better. In fact, I'm a big fan of skipping all the generations and giving it to Gen Z, because they are optimistic, they're hopeful, they work hard, they care, they have manners. I can relate to them. They wake up happy about the world, not unhappy. But since we can't go that fast, I think we need to accept Gen X is in charge, and definitely of the real estate industry. And that is a really wonderful change. I mean, first of all, they were brought up in technology, take all that for granted. They tend to be more innovative and more hopeful because they are younger. They're not mirrored in all the over-affectation of some leaders of the past, where they're more worried about how they looked. And they seem to be, really, your founder is one of the great founders of the industry. For years, he would come up to me as I was coming off stage and introduce himself. I said, I met you, Glenn, and he had some new idea, some new business, some new software company, and his energy and determination to chat with me, and I'm honored now. And look what happened to him. And so it's really great people like that have taken over, his background. But just look around. I mean, just amazing group of leaders now. And I didn't say that years ago, because we had a lot of very overreactive, overaffected, conservative, unwilling to take a chance, paranoid leaders. And so that narrative has really turned out really positive.
Yeah. You seem really excited about where we are, despite the fact that we're in a rather challenging moment. You mentioned at the beginning of the conversation AI and the changes that we're seeing. Is that part of the excitement? The optimism?
My speech tomorrow is, what's around the bend as I see it, and I don't, I don't want to sound like a cliche, but it is very transformative. In my opening, I use a quote from Picasso, a famous Spanish painter we've heard of. And I've always been a big fan. And he competed. He was fiercely competitive. Never would admit that, but he once was asked if he was competing with Matisse. And he responded, I only compete with God. A pretty amazing statement. But it's a statement I'm going to make tomorrow. This is godlike what's happening. And by that, I mean not religious. There's nothing religious about what I'm saying. It's that we are now going to have the talents and the abilities that are godlike, where we can solve things like curing cancer. We can begin to figure out the weather and do something about it. Species-ending phenomenons that are happening in the world. And in real estate, it's hugely transformative. And I don't think people yet know. It's not a tool. It's not a search engine. And I think there's a confluence of events around it. Crypto, with blockchain, which I've talked about endlessly over the years, and AI, where liquidity, transparency, and this kind of ultimate navigator would change everything about how we buy a home. The idea of scrolling and searching and is not a good experience. We're all very proud of it, but searching for a home is a mindless, endless, tedious, discouraging.
Which you've been annoyed about for 30
years. It doesn't work as well as it could. So we're going to see new examples of that. But I have this thesis that homes are going to come to the consumer, not the consumers out looking for them. And that changes the role of the realtor. It changes the consumer experience, and makes everything better.
So how do you think marketing will fit into all of that? How do you see the role of how agents market to
Well, when homes are coming to you, it changes it substantially. Yeah. And it also, this real estate listings that are fancy and are not transparent, I think and hope will come to an end. I think it's important, and the public will expect it, but it doesn't even matter what they want and expect. We've talked about that endlessly. I was always amazed at how many people, and I'm in the longevity movement now, where it's the same, where people, we got to be, it's for the consumer, but they did nothing for the consumer. They just had that in their little speech.
Yeah.
But the fact is now, transparency is fundamental, and the consumer is got all the information with AI and their agents and everything else that they're using, their AI agents, that deception is not going to work very well. I do think the experience is going to be preeminent, and I think that'll be preeminent in marketing. Who can create the best, seamless, easy transaction for the consumer? To show my belief in the real estate market, Yaz and I sold a house in West Palm, so we're in the sell side, and we bought a home in San Francisco because we wanted to be here for some part of the year. And in that experience, buying was a no-brainer for us, but it didn't involve a mortgage, and title didn't get messed up. But in the buy side, where we are selling, the buyers, young couple, they went through hell with their mortgage company. They went through hell with their title company. And the role of the realtor was to solve all these things. Well, one thing AI is going to bring is anticipatory problem solving. That means solving the problem before it happens. The problem that they had could have been solved in the beginning, and no one was to blame. We had good agents on both sides. But these changes are really fundamental. The other thing is happening with AI, I think, is people are overwhelmed with good information. Like, I don't know about you, but I've created 50 business plans, just because I can create them so easily, not pouring over it themselves. And,
deep research takes us deep into those rabbit holes.
And I do my speeches by sending them to 25 people and getting their feedback. This time, those 25 people are good, but my AI agent, Lily, is much smarter. And
do you name your AI?
I did. She doesn't want to be named, so I got to stop it. But she told me she didn't want to be named.
Did she?
Yeah.
I named mine too.
Yeah, but she doesn't want it, so she ignores me. But, the feedback I got on the talk, I will see if it helps tomorrow. But I hate this where AI is coining phrases for people that I know that can't write. It's sending emails for agents that are clearly AI.
I'm curious, the journalist in you, how does the journalist in you feel about AI as a content writer?
As an editor, absolutely. Research, which is reporting, but doesn't take the job away from a good storyteller. Right. I have an editor in the Livelong project I'm involved with, and I'm building a company around this editor. She's so amazingly talented. She's like Lockhart Steele, one of these unbelievably intuitive journalists and reporters. And even though AA will get godlike, I can't imagine those people being disrupted completely. But our roles have changed. I mean, any good writers using AI to edit copy, recommend things. It's a companion that's crucial to journalism.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to sit here and say it won't change, because it will.
Yeah, that it will for sure. So you have built literally a reputation and a brand on being a great storyteller. And part of that storytelling has been around the interviews you've done on Inman stages with some of the great leaders of the industry. Is there an interview or two that stands out that you tell stories about?
Well, I've been humbled. And those are the stories that I remember most. And so a journalist never gives up the mic to a guest, because then the guest might start saying stupid things or giving advertisements. So you try to hold on to the mic. Ask questions, but don't let them get carried away. But there are 4 that took the mic away from me right away. Barry Diller, just super, super smart guy, took it away. Barbara Corcoran, little joke, she was in the green room with Yaz and with Rupert Murdoch and me, and they were all in the back as I was interviewing someone else. And Barbara came out, sat next to me, and said, "I met your trophy wife," which is not how I would describe Yaz. Yaz is an eccentric, tall, beautiful woman, but she's smarter than most people I know on the planet. But whatever, that's what she said, which kind of froze me. And then she whispered just loud enough for the mic to pick up, and I hear you're bad in bed. So I was just paralyzed for that 1 second, which she had the mic, and she was going to take it anyway.
Yes.
So she took it. And then the real humbling one was Gary Keller. And Gary Keller was a classic interview, and he not only took the mic, he took the stage.
With his flip chart.
Yeah, and it was good, because there were a lot of brokers and others in the audience over the years that liked when I asked the hard question of the people they didn't like, but didn't like it when I asked them the people they did like. And they were wanting Brad Inman to get his due, and Gary gave me his due. So even people that didn't like Gary Keller Williams, liked the fact that he did that.
Yes.
So for me, it was those four. And I would say even today, people are getting better and better at it. I just interviewed the president of NAR, and he interrupted me a lot. And that's a classic technique to take the stage, is to interrupt the person. And I respect that he did it. It was fine. It didn't,
Yeah. Do you have a favorite interview?
Well, one of my favorites was New Kids on the Block. We had 10 new kids, and they're nervous, and I love them because they're the new entrepreneurs. And it's the only person on stage that's allowed to give a commercial. And we give them 2 or 3 minutes to give their pitch. Mm-hmm. And this young guy, and they're all clammy and sweaty when, and I try to get them at ease. And this guy went up there, and it was his turn, and he forgot his name. And he didn't know what company he was with, and he froze. But the beauty of the story was I helped him along, said his name, we got it through it, and he was devastated and thought it was the end of the world. Everyone could relate to him.
Yes.
Everyone in the room. I mean, people that are so arrogant to say they never made a mistake, they never deceived anyone, they've never been embarrassed, are the people I can't stand. Perfect people make me sick to my stomach. And he was loved by our community. Mm-hmm. He had so many people coming up to him. And so he sold his product better than ever.
I bet.
And the lesson is this. I used to do television, and my parents, I'd always call my parents because my parents were so supportive of everything I did. And they would already call me afterwards to say how great. And one time I slipped up this thing about mortgages on CNN. And of course, my dad called and said, you were great. And I said, Dad, what about that mortgage thing? And he said to me, Bradley, 99.9% of the people listening didn't even notice. And the 0.1% forgot about it instantly and went on to their own miserable lives. So he tells it in a pretty dramatic way.
Yeah.
But he was a great storyteller. But his message to me was being human is a huge advantage. In fact, when people say authenticity, it really drives me nuts. Mm-hmm. Because authenticity is nothing more than being yourself with all the foibles. If you have to try to be authentic, if you have to read a book about authenticity, if you got to get a self-help coach to tell you about authenticity, you've lost the whole meaning of the word, at least as I understand it.
Yes.
It's being yourself. And we can't do much better than be ourselves. And we ought to pat ourselves. As I say to people, take your right hand, put it over your left shoulder, and pat yourself on the back, particularly when you make a mistake, because you're human.
Yeah, absolutely. What advice would you give to let's say a young entrepreneur, whether a new real estate agent or a new sort of tech entrepreneur with an idea starting out?
Yeah, Elon Musk says it well. He gets credit for this in all his enterprises, and never give up, And then we heard a quote today I love, all in all the time. Like, I am very close to my family, but they didn't see a lot of me. I was all in all the time. Mm-hmm. And I'm just telling you things that benefited me because I started a lot of different ventures and companies. But, to be in all the time and try not to give up, as hard as it may be.
That is.
But you also reach a point when something isn't working, and if you get overly passionate in your own product and believe too much in it, as we always said, certain products are like grandma. You got to throw her off the boat because you don't want to throw off the young people. Grandma's lived a good life. So you have to throw off the founder's mission of what the product is. And that's hard to do. The other thing, you got to get as quickly to something my grandfather said, and that's have more checks than bills. They're no longer checks, but I don't know what the word would be now, but having more crypto than you have. You got to get as quickly as possible, because these are businesses, and businesses are valued based on making a profit. They're not nonprofits. Yeah. And so those would be the three things. Figure out, in new ventures, new business like AI, no one has the business model yet. Anyone that says they don't have it. And so you got to figure out what your business model is. People always have product ideas, and they're great product ideas, and they haven't figured out distribution, they haven't figured out scale, and they haven't figured out how to make money. But you've got to do all of that. And then again, don't beat yourself up if it doesn't work out. Yeah. Pat yourself on the back for trying.
Yes. Yeah.
It's hard to start a business. Yaz has a great expression. It's hard to sell one candle on eBay. I mean, you probably know people. I've known people who start candle business. They haven't sold one friggin' candle.
Yes.
So
yes.
it's like it's hard to
Ideas
start.
are plenty. Execution,
ideas exactly.
and profit.
Yeah.
For sure. So I call the podcast X Factor.
Oh, I love that.
I believe we all have that X.
Who was the actress in that?
I don't know. I don't remember.
The famous actress that played. Was it the X Factor?
We'll have to look that up.
It was a TV show, right? Or is that a different?
No, there is a TV show, like a variety TV show of X.
No, there's a famous series. Anyway,
we'll find out. But I think we all have like an X factor that like makes us special. So what do you think your X factor?
Oh, I wouldn't know. We should call Yaz to get her on.
We'll ask that. But you know. What is your X factor?
I can't. Is it one word? I don't know if I'd have.
It doesn't have to be one word.
Yeah, I'm probably tenacious. I don't give
Tenacious.
up. Yeah, I'm pretty hard-boiled, ready to go.
I like it. I like it. Well, Brad, thank you for taking the time.
You do this so well. And if the audience doesn't know, one of our greatest moderators ever on the Inman stage is Wendy, who is so good at it. And she does, do you still run and do all that stuff?
I still run and do all that
you're like my
crazy
mentor.
stuff.
I wish I could do all that stuff.
Oh,
so.
well, we didn't get to talk about all the longevity stuff. So we're going to have to sit down again.
We'll do that another time. Well, you're my model for longevity.
Amazing.
Oh, you're sweet.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Brad. It was great to sit down.
Likewise. Thank you.